Today, I want to talk about this concept that we're broken. In this world where there is a self development, personal development, growth orientated book, program, course, Facebook group, social media platform for every single possible way that you could improve yourself, quite often it comes from this mentality, this belief system that somehow we're defective, deficient, broken, and that if we can fill that gap, if we can work out how we can fix ourselves to kind of like tape over the thing that's wrong with us, we can then function as a fully functioning human being, and we can kind of create more success, we can be more happy, we can be more healthy, all those other things. But I want to kind of break down that concept, because for me, the fact that we're in this and entertaining any kind of energy that we're broken or that we're deficient just serves to feed that mentality even more, and we get stuck in this consistent cycle of believing that, everybody else is better than us, and then we can get into comparison, and it's not a helpful place to come from. And I think what fundamentally kind of comes to me is that we know there is so much scientific proof now. We know that energy is this creative force. We know that our thoughts immediately, like without any time space, like the minute that our psychology, our physiology changes, it immediately impacts our DNA. Let me repeat that. Our thoughts immediately impact and change our DNA. We also know that that change, our DNA change, immediately impacts the light photons, the very things that everything is made up of, are being manipulated into reality by what we're focusing on, what our thought processes are. Now, this is way above and beyond the law of attraction. This isn't about sitting down and imagine you're driving the posh car that you want to drive, or you've got a gazillion pound in the bank account, or that you're with your dream lover, or you're wearing the best clothes. It goes way beyond that. The Secret was amazing. It introduced us to this concept many, many years ago now, in fact. I mean, I was introduced to it back in about 2006, and it was out somewhat before that. And I think it was a great way, but I also see now that the world has been preparing and needs this massive shift in consciousness. One of my belief systems is that the business owners, soulpreneurs, we are here as part of this whole spiritual and energetic revolution, which is going to mean that we can, all of us, as we work together and we shift our own identity and shift our own levels of consciousness, we're going to help elevate the consciousness of the planet as a complete whole, and help in its kind of its safety, I guess, and in its healing. So I want to talk a little bit more about this concept of broken, and I feel like I can talk about this quite a lot of experience versus expertise. I spent most of my adult life from about the age of about 12 completely living in that belief system that there was always something wrong with me. I was too fat, I was too ugly, I looked like a boy, I wasn't very good at sport, my sister was the clever one and the sporty one. I was too mouthy, I was too bossy, I was insignificant. I used to get really a sense of humiliation and shame if I spoke out or tried to stand up for myself. And these patterns played out my entire adult life. And it's really only been since being in business, I set up in my first business back in 2012, completely accidentally, and only because my husband and I were in so much debt. It was the only way for us to make a third income was for me to get a second job. And that's how my business started. I certainly had no intention of running a business, but evolution and universe sometimes has different ideas for us. But even in those first 5 years of business, right up until around the middle of 2017, there was always this overwhelming feeling that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't the same as other people, that I didn't have the same ability, I didn't have the same mindset, I didn't have the same capabilities, and I certainly didn't have the same possibilities available to me. I really felt that I was limited, and I just thought that's just the way that I was. I never questioned it in somebody, until somebody came along and helped me understand that in challenging those thoughts, I could not be them. I could witness them, and I could change them, and I could start to change my life. And that's really what I'm going to talk to you about today, because I work with a lot of business owners sorry, I've got my notes here, who have the most incredible business ideas. They are really passionate. They really want to make a difference in the world, but they're being suffocated, strangulated, depressed, pushed down by this subconscious programming that's leading them to believe on a daily basis that they don't have it all together yet. That if they could just get this one last thing, if they could just fill this one last gap, and if they could just, that things would start to unravel. So what if we changed that? What if we decided that we weren't broken? We were never broken. We were just a product of our past up until now. And that was the game changer for me, hearing that we are a product of our past until we realize we're a product of our consciousness, and that becoming present is where, literally becoming present is a gift in and of itself every single second. When we realize that when we spend too much time in our past, we suffocate our ability to be in the now. We're so hung on to memories and belief systems and identity from the past that we believe that's who we are, and we're anchored into that, but we're never fully present in the now. Eckhart Tolle puts it in the most beautiful way. He said something like, you can the past cannot live when you are in full presence. So basically what he was saying was that, you know, you can't feed the fire of your past and your behaviors and your beliefs and your emotions around your past when you're being fully present in the now, in this moment, because you're not giving energy to that. The same as when we feeling anxious and overwhelmed, we're sending our thought processes out, our energy processes out into almost creating memories of the future around, well, what's going to go wrong? How long is it going to take? Who's going to judge me for that? And we've created all these horrendous outcomes with nothing to base that on. And so most of us spend our time sending our energy bodies into the past, where we can create blame or create victimhood, or we can just basically feel disorientated and deflated and unresourceful. Or we're sending it out into the future, worrying about the outcome of something that we're not even really carrying on right now, because when we do that, it gives us permission not to take action. But as Eckhart Tolle said, you know, our past cannot have any power in our presence. It's only in our absence that the past has power. So when we're absent and we're unconscious about the now, that's when these other things feed and kind of bring us into this kind of negative state. So if we go back to that statement that I said, where the universe is a creation based on energy. So without going too much into the quantum side of stuff, we know that the observe is affected by the observer. So, you know, molecules and things will change. And I'm not going to go into science because I don't know enough about the science. I know very superficial levels, but we know that atoms and things will change what they're doing based on people watching them. The research I told you about before that was proving the impact of a psychological, physiological state of a human being directly on its DNA. They proved the same thing happened when they checked it with white blood cells. They proved that this thing happened in time. So the minute my state changes, my DNA changes. And they also then proved that had an immediate impact on these light photons, right? So that basically the conclusion was that your thoughts create your reality. And I find it so thrilling now that there is so much scientific evidence to support that. And allowing ourselves to step into that energy when we feel like we're fragmented by the ifs, buts, maybes, but this happened and I've done this before and like when we understand that what we focus on, we bring into our life in some format to match that resonance, to match that energy, we have to become hyper aware, hyper conscious. And so in the language of the universe, when we come from that space of broken, what do you think that language relates to? What energies? What are you attracting? I'm broken. I'm depleted. I'm not full. There's something wrong with me. I'm behind everybody else. Everyone's better than me. I'm never going to get this. I just need to learn. It's all from a space of lack. It's all from a belief in an untruth. The truth is that we're all born with limitless potential and possibility, every single one of us. Now, whether you go down the lines of saying that you're created in the vision of God or you're created in the vision of this creative energy force, you know, we are all extensions of that energy. So just as the apple is an extension of the tree, we are an extension of the creative universe. Therefore, we have all of those powers. We've just forgotten how to use them. I always like to think about things like, how did they build the pyramids? How did they build Stonehenge? All these amazing feats of engineering when there was nothing like what we have available to us now, and they did it. Right? They didn't even have, they didn't have mechanics and machines. They had people power, and they had this magic that we've all got access to, but somehow along the lines we've lost it. But I do believe we're being pulled back and given the opportunity to step back into that. So coming from that mindset of being broken, you will constantly be lining up with more proof of why you are. So as an example, there may be somebody that started in business at the same time as you, and you find that they're 100 steps ahead of you because you're broken. So you keep getting that stuff fed back to you. You may find that, you keep talking about, lacking in money because you don't know enough yet. You just need another certificate, and you'll always be lacking in money. Clients might cancel. People don't buy your program. You do a launch and nobody buys. All these kind of things are a reflection of the dominant thoughts that you're holding in your mind and in your energy bodies all the time. So you've got to shift from this space of being broken. And sometimes it can seem like seemingly unrelated events and experiences can come along. But I would just ask you to kind of entertain the possibility, well, if I was the creator of my universe, what thoughts have I been holding? What vibration have I been holding in me that's bringing that to me? You need to remember that your emotions and your feelings are the truth of what you're thinking. So what I mean by that is, I pick up on energy really quickly. And so when I say to people, I know what you're not telling me, it's because what's coming out of their mouth isn't matching what I'm feeling from them on an energetic point of view. And that can be quite challenging when you're coaching, because I've got to try and guide them to tell me what's really going on. The way that you feel is the truth about what you're thinking, regardless of what's coming out of your mouth. So when you're feeling anything other than strong and certain and in faith and intentional and alert and conscious and all that, anything that feels negative, unresourceful outside of that is a reflection. There's a thought process going on somewhere, maybe deep in your unconscious, that is actually the truth of what you're thinking. And so this is why I truly believe that gifting yourself the opportunity to become more aware of your conscious thoughts and being present in the now will do most business owners more favors than buying the next strategy. It's learning how to control the software that you've got, that your subconscious is working for you and not against you. So I wrote down 3 concepts that I want you to consider as we think about this concept of not being broken. Number 1 is when you allow yourself to go down that line of being broken, of being incomplete, of being, sort of depleted, whatever words come up for you, and you've decided that there is something wrong with you, I want you to think about who or what are you comparing yourself to? Who has told you that this isn't the way to be? Who are you looking at to say, when I get like that, I will be full, I will be whole? Because wherever there is this sort of duality, there is judgment. So you've got a program in your mind that says, when I'm doing that, when I look like that, when I talk like that, when I make that amount of money, I will then be full. And I will keep coming, every single video probably I'm going to bring you back to that stage, that if you want to create a monumentally different reality for yourself, or even a tiny little different reality for yourself, you have to change the internal program first. So many people, even though they say they're not, are going, when I'm a size blah blah, when I get my first 10 grand, 20 grand client, when I've got this relationship, when then I'm going to feel so much happier, and then I'll be able to. And it's completely back to front. Took me a really long time to understand that concept, but it's been life-changing, particularly over the last 18 months. So who are you comparing yourself to, and what judgment is there around that? And just to take this one step further, what if there was no one and no thing to compare your current self to? What if you were what you were? Just take that concept for just a while. Maybe just take a moment to close your eyes and ask yourself, if I couldn't compare myself, if I didn't look around me and see anybody else, If I was just in now and I wasn't going back into the past, I wasn't going back into the future, and there was no thing and no one to compare myself to, then what? And I'll tell you what can happen. It's a little bit of a, I can't use that word. It's a little bit of a mess up for the brain, because your brain's scrambling to find the answer. But because you've given quite a strict instruction to remove any comparison, it's brought you back to just here. I'm just here. Now, doesn't that feel better just from the off? Just to say, I'm here. I'm just here in this present moment, in this present reality, in this current situation. And I can choose what to think next. So next time you find yourself in that, I would like you to ask yourself, who am I judging myself against, or what am I judging myself against? Because somewhere you're probably going to be playing out a program. Now, number two, the second concept I want you to consider is, what would happen if you swapped self-judgment for self-improvement? You see, we're really good at anchoring in on the problems. I feel this way. This thing's happening to me. I've got this problem in my life. Well, there's one word change that we can do that changes the entire energy around that. What if we replace problem with situation? I'm aware right now that I have this situation in my life. At this present moment in time, I have this situation. I'm aware that that situation is creating thoughts and feelings that I don't really want to have. What can I do to move out of that one step at a time? What if you just decided that there was a better level for you to function at? It's not that you're broken right now. We're just not functioning at the best of our abilities, at our highest self level, at bigger expectations of ourselves. So what happens if we stop that judgment and just decide to make an improvement? It could be swapping your cereal for a green smoothie. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator or the lift. It could be, just switching off the TV half an hour earlier and going to bed and reading a book about some kind of personal growth. It could be volunteering somewhere instead of spending your day off watching daytime TV and laying around on the sofa. You see, we've got this really destructive concept that the people that we deem as very successful are doing these massive, great, big things. Now, maybe they are doing big tours, or they're giving lots of money to charity, or they're doing big, launches and so on. But they're all made up of tiny little jigsaw pieces that they're doing on a daily basis. They're clear about their decisions about what they want from their life, and they work out who they need to be to make that happen. So your clarity always comes first and foremost from, who do I need to be to make these things happen, so I can do the things that I need to do, so I can have the things that I want to have. That's where so many people get their clarity wrong. There's always room and improvement in everything, absolutely everything. When you see, I've had such blessings to work with or be mentored by or watch some of the world's highest performers in the personal development realm. And they may say, okay, I'm going to take my health to another level this year, or I'm going to dial in on my relationship this year, or I'm going to find a ways that I'm in my business less that I can do more for charity this year. There is always a level of improvement. But we're in a world where, if you watch one of my last videos on apathy and on fear, it's easier to be apathetic. And so there's not many people fighting your corner, telling you to go for it, telling you to change, because it makes them feel uncomfortable that they're not doing the same. You've got to learn to deal with that, because that's going to come and bite you on the ass quite a lot as you decide to make changes for yourself. So if you haven't watched the video clip on fear and apathy yet, please go watch it, because you might just find where you might be limiting yourself again. So when we decide to do the self-improvement, again, it's not from a place of it's not working, it's what I'm doing is wrong, or I'm deficient in any way. It's just simply an awareness and a decision to see a different possibility to yourself, to see a different level for yourself in any one of a myriad of areas in your life. I really believe that if more of us spent time connecting on a spiritual or a soulful level on a daily basis, we would be so much happier, but we get stuck in the action state. Now, the third concept I want is that, and I love this concept, your mind, first of all, your mind is not your brain. Your brain is your brain. Your brain is a computer. Your mind is everywhere. Your mind is in all time and in all space. Like if I ask you now to say, well, where does your mind start and stop? Where does your mind start and stop? Like it doesn't, right? It's everywhere. Therefore, it's everything. It's all things. And so many of us are living from energy memories. And again, Eckhart Tolle, who I'm reading at the moment, talks about that, you know, the, how does he phrase it? I think he said something like the energy bodies of pain, right? So we're carrying around all these outfits of wrongs, of hurts, of experiences that have left some emotional scarring that we've never dealt with, and we attach them to who we are, and they become part of this egoic identity. But your mind is all time space. It doesn't have a truth as such, right? It makes and I've had to make some detailed notes because otherwise I will talk about this forever. It makes an experience and a perception based on the values and the memories that you have, and the experiences you have, and the values that you have, based on what everybody else has told you. But you're an adult now. You can make up your own mind about what truth is. You can decide how you want your life to look. It doesn't need to look like a version of your parents or your grandparents. It doesn't need to look like everybody else in your street or in your town or in your country. It doesn't need to look a version even of anything similar to what you have now. It could be completely different. You could be earning multi-millions of pounds in your business and going off and working for Greenpeace, or diving off of a yacht and drinking pina coladas for lunch. That's possible for you. But because we get anchored into this mind being so static, the mind is something it's magical, it's expansive, it's literally waiting for you to activate it in brand new ways. And the gift of the now, going back to the now, is that moment by moment we make that choice. And one of the exercises that I love to do with my clients is helping them to travel back down their mind line, right? Timeline, mind line, what do you want to call it? Travel back down and just find some pictures that are still kind of causing them grief, and we change the energy around that picture. Because when you change the energy of that picture, you change the meaning that your mind gives that picture. And it doesn't just change in that moment in time. It's like it affects the whole frequency. Everything's just an energy frequency, right? And again, this is scientifically proven. This is not some woo-woo stuff. This is scientifically proven. You can go back and you can change your entire timeline by just going back and seeing a picture and just changing the modalities of the picture, changing the color, changing the energy, changing who's around, changing the sound. I think it's one of the most powerful resources that we have to us. We just don't access it enough. And so with our mind being all time space, it's like we are creating our future. If we want to talk about future, we're creating our next experience in every single moment that we're living right now. Because remember, right at the beginning, we talked about our thoughts create the feelings. Feelings affect the DNA, and DNA is literally changing or impacting the light photons. So thoughts change your reality. And if you think you're thinking the right thing, but your body doesn't feel the same way as you're thinking, your body is leading the way, which is why manifestation, making things manifest, comes from your heart center, because it's the feeling rather than what you tell yourself that you're thinking. This is why the subconscious programming is so powerful. So when we learn how to travel down our timeline, and we can change the energy, we can change the beliefs and the energy around our entire timeline. You know, it's amazing, it's powerful, it's doable, but again, it's about asking you to think about concepts outside of what you might currently know. And then once you've started to kind of dive into those concepts, giving yourself the permission and the time to do this work. Because when you change your internal reality, when you change your internal belief systems, when you go back into the subconscious program, you will see a much bigger jump in your reality in a much shorter period of time than you do by just sitting down and grafting. We're creative beings. The thought of being broken is logical. Right? That's not how the creative works. We can't be broken. Our energy, our frequency might be lower than it needs to be, but we can go in and with some very simple techniques, we can change that level, we can change the energy up, not just in that moment, but in future moments. But it's all about deciding on who you need to be. So that exercise we did right at the beginning, where I said to you, what if there was no comparison? No thing, no one to compare it to. Then what? You're this amazing ball of energy in all time space, creating past, present, and future realities based on how you're feeling. I don't know about you, but that really, really excites me. So just to wrap up the conclusions, whatever you're trying to fix this year, this decade, I want you to consider changing the language around it. You are not on the diet. You are someone who chooses to give themselves better health with new habits and new routines, right? You're not somebody who just drinks a green juice. You're somebody who's committed to better nutrition. You're not somebody who just goes to the gym. You're somebody who loves to feel strong. You're somebody who loves to kind of get hot and sweaty and feel the endorphins running. You're not somebody who goes to bed early because, you know, that's what Louise told you to do. You're somebody who values the sleep so you function at your highest level of energy every single day, right? You're not someone who's getting out of debt. Because remember, if you're saying that language, you're in the lack. You're somebody who is committed to creating great wealth in their life, financial freedom. You're not someone who is fixing all their limiting beliefs. You're someone who is creating a powerful new mindset of success. Your language is everything. If you was to follow yourself around with a dictaphone and you could record your internal thoughts as well as what you say outside, you would be able to, within just a couple of days, really see who you think you are deep down, because your language is the key. And it's something that we're so unconnected to, we're so unconscious of our language that we keep redefining who we are on a limiting and often self-sabotaging level. So I want to just give you that. So you're not broken. Broken comes from a sense of judgment. If we step away from judgment, we get to choose to be in the now. Our mind is all time, all space. We cannot be present when we're living in the memories of the past. We cannot be present and creative when we're self-sabotaging and we're dramatizing the future, right? We only have now. We only have this moment. Whatever we choose to think and believe about the past changes nothing. However we predict the future, you can have the whole self-fulfilling prophecies, but most of the time when people are focused on the future, 95% of people are focused on what might go wrong. Be the person that commits yourself to a decade, a year of more success, more wealth, more happiness, more health, more joy, more connection, more meaning, more mission, more purpose, more spiritual connection. It's a game changer. Working on your energy, working on your belief systems, connecting back into a soulful practice is going to be the way that your business will transform in the next 12 months. I can pretty much guarantee that. I hope this has served you. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you come over and listen to the Lifepreneur podcast and subscribe to that as well, so you keep updated. And if you found this helpful, I'll be super grateful if you would share it to another soulpreneur, another lifepreneur, somebody who wants to create their rich life and live their life of purpose, passion, and profit.